Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. CBS News. Liz Cheney removed from House GOP leadership. Representative Liz Cheney was removed Wednesday from her leadership position among House Republicans. She was ousted as conference chair in a voice vote by House GOP members shortly after their closed-door meeting came to order, and the meeting was adjourned within 20 minutes. After the vote, Cheney told reporters that she will, quote, do everything I can to make sure the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office. She knows that President Trump is almost certainly going to run again. She knows that she's defeated. Trump has annihilated and completely obliterated these dynasties within the Republican Party. Corrupt, establishment, two sides of the same coin dynasties. The greatest moral dilemma we face as a country, the greatest moral dilemma, and if anyone tells you differently, they're wrong. The most grandiose, existential, moral dilemma we face is never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. Whether it's President Obama and military interventions and the foreign policy of changing regimes simply because you look at a map like it's this Dungeons and Dragons or a Stratego board game. Bill Kristol and the Lincoln Project, these people, when they're wrong, you have countless lives lost, ruined, suffering endlessly. And the road to you-know-where is paved with good intentions. You can always say, well, President Obama wanted to help the people of Libya. There are now human beings being bought and sold in that country because of President Obama's foreign policy. That's not hyperbole. They haven't had a moment's peace since President Obama tried to save their lives. It's been chaos and mayhem. You look at the entire region, and you look what Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld did with the help of Kerry and Biden and Clinton. So what's the difference on grandiose issues? We've been there for 20 years now. Hundreds of thousands of traumatic brain injuries among Americans. Hundreds of thousands of PTSD cases. Thousands of lives lost. Thousands upon thousands of lives lost. 1 million of the 2.5 million Americans who served were injured in some manner. Over 1 million. Injured for the rest of their lives in some manner. And, we can go on the list, and that's not even addressing the destabilizing factors, all the different groups that were created from the power vacuums and from, in other countries, the loss of life, the devastation. We're not talking about that. And then they say, well, we can't leave from that country because then it'll revert back. Well, we shouldn't. That is an acknowledgement that we'd have to stay there forever, which is fine with Kerry and Biden and Clinton, and just fine with Cheney and Romney. When your foreign policy affects not only your country, but numerous other countries, removing a despot, and then just saying, oops, shrugging your shoulders and saying, well, gosh, it's too bad. We really meant to do a lot of good. Oh, well, now you have 2 decades or a decade of endless chaos, mayhem, lives lost, new adversaries that pop up that are even more problematic than the prior adversaries that you believe that you defeated. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, because this is what drives me. This is how you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump. And this is why Cheney is out now. After voting, by the way, 90% of the time alongside President Trump. So what she's engaged in is just smoke and mirrors, public relations, and illusion. She didn't oppose Trump. She voted alongside President Trump 90% of the time. That should tell you that Trump is very much like the traditional Republican in terms of a great many policies that she claims to be. The grandiose issues they differ on. And that's why, in addition to, we'll get to the fact that she sided with Democrats and very corrupt intelligence agencies that her father sided with or utilized to set up and frame Trump. Trump never worked with Russia. That's an absurd tinfoil hat theory. There's zero evidence. Pointing to an intelligence report is meaningless. You could say that, you could go back and say, well, was the Bay of Pigs, Gulf of Tonkin, WMD, these are all intelligence reports, and they led to absolute catastrophe, global catastrophes. So saying that, well, James Clapper had a hunch and he was confident, that is not evidence. Sorry. You need to take a course in basic logic. That's not evidence at all. But getting back to why Cheney is out. President Trump, on May 1st, 2021, negotiated a deal to get us out of our longest-running counterinsurgency conflict in Afghanistan. The longest-running military endeavor we've ever had in this country. He should have been praised for that. And a counterinsurgency type of involvement is where you can have the best submarines, the greatest Navy, Air Force. We have, by far, our military budget is the next 9 or 10 countries combined. We have the most powerful military, by far. And we have the money that other countries don't, unfortunately, to prolong military endeavors. But you cannot defeat a counterinsurgency. You cannot, there's no definition of victory. Because when you leave, the situation reverts back to the same situation as when you came in. It's you're trying to win the hearts and minds of people who oftentimes don't want you there. Or the hearts and minds of people who have to deal with very powerful and influential factions within their country who don't want you there. And you're dealing with cultures and customs and history and peoples and languages, and it would be the equivalent of another country coming to our country and saying, okay, well, we want this political system. Not exactly the equivalent, obviously, but it doesn't work. You cannot win hearts and minds through the French learned in Vietnam, we learned there, we've learned in the past 20 years, the Soviets learned in Afghanistan. So you cannot You cannot win this type of military conflict. And this is the type of military conflict that Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld got us into. And that President Obama also got us into by sending Americans to even more places. Than Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. I can go into it, but we'll just abide by YouTube policies. President Obama tried another regime change, not only in Libya, but in another country, to remove Assad with by arming his rebels and continuing to foment or to send weaponry and armament and money to his opposition. You could say, well, he was a despot and authoritarian. Yeah, but if you removed him, what do you think would happen? We would have to then patrol Damascus the way that we did in other countries. It was not one of President Obama's surreptitious foreign policy endeavors, where it wasn't Libya, but it was something similar. He prolonged the conflict there. And those aren't my words. There are international relations scholars that have stated President Obama's foreign policy was detrimental to numerous countries. Okay? Again, you don't want this type of endless wars. This is the greatest moral dilemma we face as a country. It's also an existential issue because, A, you can't continually engage in these conflicts through generations. To continue to engage, that is what a despotic regime does. That's what the authoritarians do. Trump is the antithesis of a despot. He signed prison reform legislation, and he removed Americans from our longest-running conflict. How on earth is he a despot? Because of tweets? I'll take his tweets over if he's going to do those things. He single-handedly pried America from a region of the world. Single-handedly. And he gets no credit for it because it's not important. They say that he was destabilizing in other ways, and oh well, if he did some good things here and there, he's tarnishing democracy. Two good, morally superior liberals, oftentimes apoplectic, but always indignant and morally superior, and the good establishment Republicans like Cheney. Removing Americans from a region of the world we've been in for 20 years is not even important. They don't care. I've actually heard from numerous morally superior liberals. They don't care. I say, look, I'm voting for President Trump because I want to remove Americans from harm's way. They care more about Russian bounties, which never happened, by the way. Another, fabricated myth from the intelligence community. They care more about keeping Americans there with the prospect or specter of Russian bounties that never happened, then removing them so they wouldn't have to contend with that issue, which, by the way, was fabricated. They're the same people who will read in an Atlantic article saying, oh my God, Trump disparaged fallen Americans and keep Americans in harm's way forever. There's no logic or reason. That's democracy to them. That's why they say Trump is tarnishing democracy. That's democracy to them. And now Cheney is out. And Trump completely controls the Republican Party because of his policies and his value system that is far more moral or just than the Cheney, Kerry, Rumsfeld, Hillary Clinton model of governing. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Great day.